What is going on, everybody? This is Trevor Hauer from Bandit Land Boulevard giving you a quick recap of last week's game where the Buffalo Bandits lose to the Albany Firewolves by a final score of 17-13. The Bandits are 0-1 for their second consecutive season, ironically against the same team. Albany beat us at home 11-10 last year in our home opener. We go into MVP Arena this year and lose 17-13. My initial thoughts of the game, you heard me on the pregame, right? I said don't take any team lightly. I didn't think the Bandits looked as prepared as they should have going into this game. There are a lot of things that need to be cleaned up, I think. There was some good, there was some bad, there was some ugly. I'll get into it right here, right away. You know, Apologize for the late recap, but I'm still in college, finals week. The whole deal. Just didn't get around to making a post game, but the overall theme of this game, in my honest opinion, it's just clearing off the cobwebs. It's not all there. Um, I've seen the term that people throw around about the Bandits. They might be a little hungover from their championship. They kind of looked the same last year, except it was a lot closer. And the Bandits really didn't have as many goal scorers last year in that first game as they did this year. But if you jump right into the stats about this game and you look at their loss, their 17-13 loss to the Firewolves, the main thing that you're looking at is where does the game get away from the Bandits? And in my honest opinion, that's the second quarter. The Bandits take a 2-1 lead in the first. You think that they have enough firepower, enough energy to go into the second quarter and hold on to that lead and go into halftime with a lead. Instead, they give up 8 goals in the second quarter, and while they only scored 4. And you look at the face-off numbers. This was the big concern that I said on the pregame. No Max Adler. He's stuck in Disney World doing his real job. And, he's got job commitments, he's got work commitments, and he's not going to be able to be your face-off, get-off guy, at least for the beginning parts of the season, possibly longer. Going into the middle of the season, going into the end of the season. You don't know if you're going to get Adler at all this year, is what I'm trying to say. So when you see that, it's a bit of a gut punch, when he's not on your active roster. And, he was so good for this team in 2022 when we picked him up, and all of last season, especially in the playoffs. The dude was a face-off machine. And you look at the box score, the Bandits win 10 out of 34 face-offs. But the Bandits, it seemed like it really didn't matter at the end because the Bandits still got 45 shots compared to Albany's 49 shots. And a very, very big positive about this first game of the season that we did not have last year was a healthy Chris Cloutier. Chris Cloutier scored 4 goals last weekend and heavily contributed to this Bandits offense, as well as the power play. You give the Bandits a power play, they're probably going to score on that power play. They went 2 for 3 on the PP. Just the only bad part was they were getting a little undisciplined towards the back end of that game. There were a couple fights in there too with Brad McCulley and Nick Weiss. The Bandits had 24 penalty minutes compared to Albany's 22, but it seemed to be fairly called right down the middle, in my honest opinion. It looked like the penalties, after rewatching the game, the penalties that were called were absolute penalties. It was probably the best officiated game that I've ever seen, in the past 3 or 4 years in the National Lacrosse League. They're known to have terrible, out of shape officials, but it seemed to be pretty fair for me. Kyle Buchanan causing turnovers left and right. He caused 3 turnovers. Josh Byrne with 11 shots. And it was just, I don't know what else to really say other than they're just clearing the cobwebs off. 2022, they came out swinging with a big 16-9 victory over the Calgary Roughnecks. 2023, they lose the first game to Albany. What did they do after losing to Albany? They went on and won a championship. If losing the first game of the season promises me a championship appearance at the end of the year, I'm totally going to take it. And this year is going to be a little bit different too. I don't see the Bandits, if they want to prove me wrong, they can. I don't see this team being a 14, 15 win team because all the pressure's on them. They know that other teams are going to try to dethrone the Bandits from their championship crown. So these games are going to be tougher. They're going to be more physical. They're going to be more fast paced. And I think Albany grabbed the bull straight from the horns and pulled the thing down. And I thought they did a very, very good job at that. The Bandits this week, they have the San Diego Seals coming up, and that's going to be a very, very tough game as well, considering the fact that San Diego was the best team out west last year. We got rid of the East and Western divisions, so it's going to be all big mess towards the end of the year, who's going to get into the playoffs and what the seeds are going to look like and stuff like that. But I don't want to say the Bandits have a long road ahead of them, but it's going to be more of a difficult type of road because they did the best thing that they could ever do in winning their fifth championship. But this year it's going to be different because every other team wants a bit of that championship. They want a piece of the Bandits. They want to take down the champs. So each game is going to be more physical, and because you are the top dog. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that's what all these other teams in the league are going to be doing in the 2024 season. They're going to try to go after the best, and I think Albany did a great job at that going into this week. But when you talk about some of the scoring, it's great to have Brandon Robinson back. We missed him, I think, from March throughout the rest of the whole season going into the playoffs. We missed him, so it's great to have him back and him scoring. The big body in front of the net. Love to see Brandon Robinson back. Josh Byrne back to his normal self, getting the first goal for the Bandits. Dane Smith on the power play. Nana Koch with a beautiful goal. I know he was questionable going into that game, but beautiful give and go goal to Tehoka Nana Koch that was absolutely incredible. And I think the secondary scoring is there. Chase Frazier scoring and Ian McKay scoring and Tehoka Nana Koch scoring, and it was great to see Matt Spanger out there and Dalton Solver out there. Full reps from Carter McKenzie. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Matt Vince, and everybody, you guys need to chill out about Matt Vince. He is one of the greatest National Lacrosse League goalies of all time. He had a very slow start last year as well. And what did he do? He rebounded. This year, he has a very slow start. The only logical thing is that he goes up from here. Guys, the whole point of this postgame, we're not crying about a Bandits loss in December in the first game of the year. You guys just need to realize that. Look at how great Rochester started last year. Would they go 6 or 7-0? They lose one away game to the Bandits, and then their season unravels. That is not this team. You get rid of that. You get that one loss out of the way. We don't have to hear this undefeated 1993 talk anymore. Get that loss out of the way. Come back home, avenge that defeat, and beat San Diego. That's all you got to do. But the Matt Vince slander is absolutely atrocious. Coming from the championship game and the performance that he had in the championship game last year, where he, tie an NLL record for least goals against in a championship game with 4. Then he comes in a little bit rusty 6 months later against Albany, and all of a sudden he's too old, he's washed or whatever. I can tell easily on Twitter and Facebook who the casual fans are and who the diehards are. Anyone who's calling for Matt Vince's job in December of 2023, we're not even in 2024 of the 2024 season yet. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe stop watching, or maybe educate yourself on the game. I will not tolerate. Now, did Matt Vince have a bad game? Yes. I'll be the first one to tell you that Matt Vince had an awful game. Is he washed? Am I calling for his job on this show? No, I'm not. I think Matt Vince is a great goalie. He's one of the best goalies of all time. And I think it was a savage move to say that he's only got room for 6 more rings immediately after winning the 2023 title. I think the Bandits are going to be fine. It's just, who's going to be that guy that's going to be taking the face-offs? And we just need to add a little bit more pressure on defense. And you're not really going to get that, as much of a defensive performance as you would like with, missing guys like Adam Bomberry and Bryce Sweeting. That's just the way it is. But we got Cam Wires, who's a rookie. mold him to be a solid player. And Dylan Robinson looked good. Took a roughing penalty there in the game, later in the game, but he looked fine. Give defense this time to gel. I know that the Bandits Mafia is going to be invading the KeyBank Center, hopefully 19,070 strong on Saturday when they take on the San Diego Seals at 7:30 for banner dropping night. I really hope that we see a huge turnout. But from week 2 in MVP Arena, just knocking some rust off. That's just what it is. We're not going to panic about the Buffalo Bandits right now. You know who else is 0-1? The Colorado Mammoth. They lost to the Georgia Swarm. Okay? We could be Las Vegas. We can lose 17-5 to freaking Georgia. We could be them. We could be the Calgary Roughnecks in week 1 that had a 6-goal lead on the Nighthawks going into the fourth quarter, and they lost that game by a goal. We could be those guys. Guys, we're the reigning champs. Nobody's calling for Matt Vince's job. Nobody's calling for Johnny T's job. What they're doing is they're just clearing the cobwebs. If they start off 0-3, 0-4, yeah, we're going to have a different conversation. But I don't think that's what this Buffalo Bandits team is going to do under the leadership of John Tavares, under Steve Priolo, under Dane Smith, Nick Weiss, our 3 captains and our 1 captain, our 2 assistant captains. I don't think that's going to happen. You have leadership coming in from all different sides of the board, through all 3 sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, and goaltending. Your coach is the greatest indoor player of all time. They're going to bounce back from this. I give Albany a lot of credit for what they did. Who was it? It was Simmons, Nardella, and Longboat. Those 3 players really picked up the pieces for that team. They're a young team. They're also a fun team to watch too, apparently. I remember talking to Tony on the pregame, and I said, this is a rebuilding team. We're the champions. They're either going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to roll over and the Bandits are going to squash them, or they're going to say, these guys are the champions. We're going to play up to competition. We're going to try to dethrone them, and that's exactly what they did. So 17-13 final from MVP Arena. Matt Vince allowing 33 saves, played all 60 minutes. Kind of surprised there at the end that we didn't see at least a little bit of Steve Orleman or Devlin Shanahan. I believe it was Devlin Shanahan that was the backup goalie that dressed that night. But maybe to see a little bit of him in there, just to send a message to your defense saying, we're going to replace our goalie. Maybe we can step it up a little bit. It's just week 2. So now we're going into week 3, taking on San Diego. Tony and I will be here to talk about that on the pregame. But if I had to give a player of the game to the Bandits in a 17-13 loss, I'm giving it to Chris Kluche. 4 goals, 1 assist, 5 points. And then I think, closely behind him would probably be Tehoka Nanakok with 2 goals, 2 assists. And the dude was 50-50 to play. He was a 50-50 shot that he was going to play. It was a game-time decision and netted 4 points. But yeah, 17-13 loss to the Albany Firewolves from last Saturday. On December 9th, the Bandits will be back at it. We will be back at it, me and Tony, on the pregame before banner night at the KeyBank Center when we drop the 5th championship title from the Raptors. And guess what? It's going to hang there forever. We'll be here for the pregame for that. Final score from Albany, 17-13. The Bandits are 0-1, but it's not time to freak out. 3 words left to close out this show, and that is let's go Bandits. Let's go.